So why do so many pro athletes go broke? And why does it happen so frequently with entertainers and musicians too? And most importantly, what can we learn from their financial failures so we don't end up making the same mistakes in our own lives? Hey, it's Dr. Brad Klontz, your favorite financial psychologist and CFP. Today, we're diving in one of the most tragic and fascinating money psychology topics out there. We're talking about people go from food stamps to Ferraris and back again. By the end of this video, you'll understand 7 hidden psychological traps that cause this and how to avoid them in your own life, even if you don't end up with an NFL contract. Remember to subscribe if you like psychology and money. Now let's get into it. Reason number 1, they believe the money will never stop. It's easy to believe that the good times are going to keep on rolling when you get a huge check. But here's the reality. The average NFL career lasts only 3.3 years. And in the NBA, it's an average of 4.5 years. And in music, most hit songs come from one-hit wonders, artists who never see a big royalty check again. The belief that this win is just the first of many wins that are going to come over my life for even decades can lead to massive lifestyle inflation. Big mansions, expensive cars, entourages, living as if the next check is guaranteed, but it's not. While optimism is great, it can come at a huge cost when we're spending like that based on false assumptions. In psychology, we call this a recency bias. It's where we think that things that have happened recently, and in this case, fabulous financial things, we think that's going to continue. But in the vast majority of these cases with professional athletes, musicians, entertainers, the money drives up much faster than expected, especially if you're spending like you think it never will. Which brings us to reason number 2, trying to keep up with richer teammates. Not every athlete gets a $100 million deal. As a matter of fact, most don't. But in the locker room, everyone tends to spend as if they did. And think about it. Your family, your friends, people who have supported you for years, they're overjoyed that you made it. And they're going to assume that you're rich. They're going to assume that you're going to keep making more and more money as you progress. And of course, they're going to want to see your mansion. They're going to want to take a ride in your Lambo. The pressure is huge. I've worked with pro athletes making the league minimums, but driving $200,000 cars and flying private. Why? Because they didn't want to seem less than their teammates. It's a phenomenon I call financial peer pressure, and it affects all of us. You feel like you have to match the wealth and the spending of people around you, even if it means you have to go into debt to do it. This is especially true and especially powerful if you come from poverty. The idea that you finally made it and you're not going to pay for bottle service? Good luck. Reason number 3, the financial comfort zone. This is one of my core concepts that I write about a lot in my books. Your financial comfort zone is based on your early experiences around money, typically the socioeconomic class in which you grew up in. If you grew up poor or middle class, you develop beliefs and habits that helped you survive and thrive in that environment. But those same helpful habits and beliefs will sabotage you when you come into quick wealth. You might even feel guilty for having money. You may unconsciously spend it or give it away to return back to normal. It really comes down to our psychology. When you think of our evolution as a species on Earth, we are wired to be close to our tribe. And getting rich can make you feel like an outsider, especially if it happens fast. And this will trigger alarm bells in your subconscious, causing you emotional distress. Think about it. Through most of our history on Earth, if you're separated from your tribe, it meant you were going to die. To make it work at higher levels of wealth, it's almost like you're going to have to learn the habits and beliefs of a different tribe, leaving your own. And for many of us, this is a tribe of total strangers. We don't know who these people are. We don't know how they live. We don't know what sort of expert advice they get in their life. We have no idea. If you come into a bunch of money quickly, you're going to feel out of your element. You won't know who to trust. And all of your family and friends are going to start looking at you differently. But more on that in reason number 4 coming up. All of this anxiety, all of this stress, what is your subconscious going to do to relieve it? For most people, they end up sabotaging themselves subconsciously so that they can return to their original tribe. Now, it's easy to say that this wouldn't happen to you, but you're wrong. It happens to most people who come into big amounts of money quickly. It changes everything with regard to the relationships. And most of those relationships can't last as a result. So rather than getting rid of your family and friends or entering into a new tribe, you end up getting rid of your money. You see this happen all the time with lottery winners. Many end up broke or worse within 5 years. Why? Their identity, their tribe didn't have time to catch up with their bank account. Reason number 4, family, friends, and emotional blackmail. One of the most heartbreaking reasons that people go broke in these scenarios is that everyone wants a piece. For many, suddenly you're the financial savior for your entire family tree. You're expected to pay for housing, cars, medical bills, even weddings. And why? because you're the one who made it. And saying no, that can make you the villain in your entire family. I've seen this happen many, many times. Let me tell you a quick story of what Charles Barkley did. Back when he was preparing for the 1996 Olympics, he got some powerful advice from Grant Hill's mother. She told him, Charles, do not start taking care of your family and friends, because once you start, they'll never stop. And no matter how much you give them, the first time you say no, they're gonna hate you. Now, that hit Charles hard, but it turned out to be one of the most powerful and important lessons he learned about money, because he had made that mistake. He tried to help everyone. He gave, and just like she said, eventually he had to set boundaries, and it ruined his relationships. And he learned the hard way that setting boundaries isn't selfish, it's necessary. Otherwise, you're gonna end up broke, you're gonna end up bitter, and you're gonna be surrounded by people who only loved you because of your bank account. But the fact is, most pro athletes, entertainers, musicians, they don't have those boundaries put in place. And by the time they figure it out, it's too late. And why don't they? They fear rejection, they fear abandonment, and they have tremendous amount of guilt for having more than their family and friends. And many are really never taught how to say no with love and how to help in other ways other than cash handouts. But if you get stuck in that pattern, you're gonna bleed through your bank account with a bunch of tiny cuts, and you're gonna end up broke. Reason number 5, they don't trust financial professionals. Here's an uncomfortable truth. Most wealthy people work with attorneys, they work with CPAs, they work with financial advisors. But if you grew up poor, chances are you never knew any of those people. And you may have even heard horror stories of athletes and entertainers who are robbed by shady advisors, or entertainers and musicians who are taken advantage of by their managers. And these stories are absolutely true, but they are outliers. So what do? You don't seek help. You try to do it on your own. You trust your cousin or your uncle who had an investment idea. Basically, that mistrust leads to financial isolation, which is dangerous. The fact is that managing wealth requires a team, and the more wealth you have, the more important it is. A poor mindset will say, I need to do this all on my own. A rich mindset knows they need help. You wouldn't go to the Super Bowl without a coach, so you shouldn't be trying to manage your millions of dollars without one too. Reason number 6, they think they have the Midas touch. When you've won the lottery, you've dominated on the field, you've topped the charts, you're gonna think you're really, really good, and you are at that. But it's very easy to slip into the belief that everything you touch is gold. It's a psychological trap called overconfidence bias. This is a cognitive distortion where you think that your past success is going to generalize in other areas of your life. Many athletes and entertainers fall into this trap. They assume, if I'm great at this, well, I'll be great at that. So what happens? They start a clothing line, they open up a restaurant, they launch a record label, they buy real estate they don't understand, and they throw money into startups as if they're a seasoned venture capitalist. And then what happens? Well, they lose big because they forgot that their success in sports and entertainment typically came after decades of learning and failure and practice. But they subconsciously expect that their first move in business is going to be a home run, even though they have no training, they have no strategy, and they have no expert guidance. The same overconfidence can show up when it comes to speculative investments. Because they can hit a 3, they suddenly think that they're going to be experts at reading financial statements, predicting market performance, and they're going to think that they have a special eye for catching these can't miss opportunities. But without real financial literacy, without real expert advice, without real knowledge and practice and expertise, they're going to end up losing. And most of the time they do. We only tend to see the stories of the few who make it. So what's the result? They lose money, failed businesses, bad investments. We know in psychology that the more successful someone is in a particular field, the more susceptible they are to this overconfidence bias. Because all along the way, their performance is getting rewarded with paychecks and applause. They think they can apply that to other areas where they don't have any expertise. But money doesn't care how famous you are, and a lot of pro athletes, entertainers, and musicians have to learn this the hard way. Reason number 7, they confuse their self-worth with their net worth. When you go from poor to rich relatively quickly, your identity can get tangled up into your money. You start believing that your cars, your jewelry, your fancy watch, your accolades, that these define your value as a human being. So when the money slows down or the fame fades, you start to think your value as a person is fading too. And this identity crisis can often fuel bad financial decisions as well as depression. It can make you try to do things in a desperate attempt to try to feel important again. For this reason, it's not unusual to see athletes try to chase the next big thing and end up in financial ruin. True financial well-being isn't just about your bank account. It's how you're grounded in the belief that you are important even when the spotlight fades. So, why do so many rich athletes and entertainers and musicians go broke? It's not because they're stupid. It's not because they're irresponsible. It's because they were never trained to understand how money works and how to manage it well. They're not given instruction on how to manage their relationships around money, especially when they're thrust from a lower income class to an upper income class. Overnight wealth is like a psychological earthquake, and without the right tools, mindset, and teams, it can bury you. If you want to keep yourself safe from this type of trap and make sure you're not limiting your financial success because of a subconscious desire to stay with your tribe, I strongly encourage you to start looking at your money scripts. You can't outrun your beliefs, but you can rewire them. If you found this video helpful, subscribe, and definitely check out the description below, where I have a free test you can take to examine your money scripts. I'll see you next time.